Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much. Toot Sleuth Podcast, Greg Essenmacher here. I am so excited today to welcome my friend, Deneen Dismore. She is an entrepreneurial force, as she put in her bio, in dental marketing and new patient acquisition. She brings a wealth of industry knowledge and a passion for women's empowerment, which I want to learn more about because I met her at the Women in DSO meeting last year. I almost said earlier this year, but it's last year because we're in 2024 now. How's that for making some fun mistakes in the beginning? She's the founder of the CEO and the CEO of Dismore Consulting. And when we first met, I just love the fact that she is a heart leader and she leads with her heart, and we connected on a heart level. She has a track record of business growth, particularly in the fast-paced environment like Manhattan. Got to hear about that. Expertise honing over a decade extends to mentorship, empowerment, like I said, for women in the dental community, which I think is fantastic. We need more of and supporting more of. And I am an ally of women and more women in leadership empowerment. Her approach, combining data-driven strategies, deep understanding of client relationship, has defined her success in dental marketing. Welcome, Deneen. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Greg, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. We're going to have fun.
Absolutely. So, Deneen, when we met about a year ago, it was it was interesting because I was just at the learning edge of hearing about fractional and what a fractional was. And for anyone who in my listening audience may not know or understand, right? Because I'm a consultant, and the word consultant now has so many different connotations and sometimes not the best connotation. But as far as a fractional, can you explain to my listening audience, like, what exactly is a fractional CMO?
So, a fractional CMO is the way to go for so many companies, whether it doesn't matter if you're a startup company or somebody who's a bit more established. When you hire somebody in a fractional capacity, you're usually hiring them for a very, very short period of time. CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, I'm rooted in marketing, so I serve as a marketing professional for very short windows, usually for one very specific task. They want somebody to put together systems, or they want some specific goal executed well by a professional, but they really don't want to have somebody there full time because it's either not needed or not within their budget. So here I come. I don't need benefits. I can just show up as my most vivacious self, get the mission accomplished, get in, get out, and then they can keep on hiring me in a fractional or short window of time for as ever long as they need. And it's a great way of doing business. I find that with my personality and my skill set coming from Manhattan, we're all about that fast pace and, being very laser focused on a specific goal or task. It's my favorite way of doing work as a marketing professional for those who need me.
I so love that. So it reminds me of a phrase. I don't know. It probably came from a commercial or something where it's get in, get out, get on with your life, right? It's that kind of sense that you're talking about of what you do for practices or groups, no matter where they are in their life cycle, right? It is specific. It is project focused, if you will, task oriented. And I love that too. And the reason why is that, so for what I do with practices and the form and function that I do, it's 6 months. It's not a contract. It's month to month. And after a couple of months, if you have the goods, kick me out. All right. I'm not a permanent fixture on a payroll. And so it sounds kind of familiar and similar. I don't know, fractional. There's something about fractional. It sounds like fracking to me. But anyway, that's a whole nother tangent we could go down for sure. So tell me a little bit more about, like, with clients, like some of the examples so that our listening audience has an idea. When you say that it's very specific about setting up, I think you said a system or a process in marketing, give some examples of what type of work that you would do of when a group or a company would bring you in for a specific project. Give it an example or two so that they have an idea if they're listening and saying, oh, I can identify with that. That makes sense, of something that you've done recently.
Sure. So I have been, well, one of my most recent projects is I was brought in a fractional capacity to help launch a specific service to the market, right? They had no idea of how to tell everybody about this specific service because there wasn't a social media person. There wasn't, this massive team behind this endeavor. They really just wanted to make sure that everybody knew about their service and that people would be able to buy into it based on whatever assets that they had to leverage. And so I come in and I'm just like, all right, you don't have a social media person. I can now recruit a social media person, or I can do some of the operational activities and marketing myself if it's within my wheelhouse, and make sure that your goal, which is to launch this specific service to the market as an industry partner, is reached. And that's just one of many examples. You can serve as a fractional market CMO in a dental practice where you're literally just putting together a system and a marketing program that's a bit more comprehensive for a startup group. You can work in the capacity of where you're working with an industry partner, say they have a product or a service that they want to bring to market, or maybe they want to hire a marketing professional, but they don't really know how to start because they don't have a human resources division, or their operations division is a bit overwhelmed. And even if they were underwhelmed, they don't know what to look for when it comes to attracting and getting a good professional to come in. Fractional CMOs are really good at helping to bridge the gap with those crucial but often missing holes that are in a company's infrastructure.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing you say is it's not only the task oriented pieces, right? So it's the, with social media, you gave the example of helping to launch a service into the market, right? There's tasks that are involved, right? Social media, getting the word out, whether it's, LinkedIn, Meta, which is the Facebook and Instagram, or all the, all the channels, if you will. It's that task oriented piece, right? Operational is what, you termed it, I believe, but it's also the recruiting aspect, so that if a group or organization needs to bring in a professional because of the level of skill that you have, right, which is that C-suite level of skill, and they're only bringing you on a fractional level, which is nice, so they don't have to like worry about the what I call the burden to the payroll, right? And to the top line revenue, the P&L statement, if you will, which I look after with my business partners as a business advisor. That you can also help find, recruit, and know exactly what to look for, the skill set of somebody maybe on more, I don't want to say entry level, but somebody more at like a mid level, at an operational level, that can execute on the strategies that are already set forward, that you're able to help. Do I have that right? Does that sound about what you're talking about?
You do. One of the fastest ways to succeed, especially when you're in a CEO's point, is to have a professional set of eyes oversee the areas that you don't have time for, or unfamiliar with, or just don't have the desire to look into. So somebody like me who's immersed in the marketing world, it's very easy for somebody like me to be able to make a recommendation of a company, or make a recommendation of certain systems, whether they be just internal systems so that the cross-departmental structure works really well, or just bringing somebody in to kind of help bridge the gaps. If you don't have that professional set of eyes, I imagine that things could be done, but they're just not done really efficiently, or they're not really done from a place of strength. You're always going to be second guessing yourself, and I help to fix that.
Yeah, that's so important too, to come in with the expertise that you have and be able to share from. It's not so much an outsider's point of view, but it's taking best practices from what you've seen in other groups and organizations, and being able to bring that into the tunnel vision that is seen sometimes in that organization without the breadth of expertise. I really enjoy hearing that. So let's transition a little bit. And you mentioned in the second part of what you shared earlier, and that is in the dental practice itself. And so I want to learn a little bit more, because the dynamics of patients today are so much different than they were 18 months ago. And I work in that full arch lane, right? You're familiar with that. But in general, so what do you see as some of the common challenges? And it doesn't have to be in full arch, just in general for the listening audience, because I have a wide listening audience. What are some of those common challenges that you're seeing as you help the dental practices and set up strategies for them, that they're facing when they're trying to acquire new patients, just in general, and how they can overcome some of these obstacles that you're seeing successfully? And I'm talking recently. Let's not talk about in general. Let's talk about very recently, and the changing dynamic of patients just in the last 3, 6 months, because that landscape is ever dynamic, ever changing, and being agile in marketing, as you know, I'm not telling you anything new, just is so vastly different, just month to month, it seems, of how it changes. I know from the full arch landscape, but just in general for new patient acquisition. So could you share on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So these patients are, and I hate to use the word woke, but these patients know what they're doing these days. Like they are very much dialed in. They've done their research, they've read your reviews, they've looked at your social media. They are judging you from the second that they meet you. Often it's not even over the phone. You know, years ago, they used to say, okay, well, maybe we'll call, or maybe they send an email, or somehow they get into our office. These patients these days are tech savvy. If you don't have the ability to book an appointment online, that could be an issue. They want ease of use. They want to know all about you from a third party's perspective. They don't want to necessarily see what you have to offer on your website, although do tell a compelling story that's on brand. They want to see what people like them have to say about you. And so as they come in and they're a lot more savvy, and then from the dental practice side of things, we're navigating things like, we're trying to drop this PPO plan, right? We're going from, maybe insurance based to fee for service. How is it that we're going to successfully speak to this savvy patient who thinks, I have this dental insurance card, which means I don't have to pay a thing. and and they come into the office and they have all these expectations and all these needs that need to be met, when really the insurance card is a coupon, and we may have transitioned from accepting insurance in the capacity that the patient is traditionally used to. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of patients are trying to make sure that their practice has all the latest tech. They're interested in AI. They're okay with paying for additional screenings, whether it's an oral cancer screening or some kind of digital use to make sure, intraoral cameras, something that's there to make sure that they're getting a full service experience. And then from the dental side of things, they have to make sure that the digital infrastructure in order to attract and get these clients are there. Because if the patient calls and you don't pick up, or if they can't book, they are going on to the next person. Their attention span is that much shorter. And because of that, how do we bridge the gap between where we were, which isn't necessarily in the analog days, but not as quite as up to date, especially now with the introduction of artificial intelligence, online booking systems? Like, what is it that we can do to elevate our practice and meet the demands of this very well informed person who needs me for the services that I offer? And if I don't bring it to the table, they're going to just jump ship.
Yeah, well, and what you're talking about as well, one of the things that I really want to start to discuss and transition to is, the analog to digital, right? You mentioned the analog to digital, and I would venture to say it's not just in like practice management systems to marketing, right? And the patient savviness that you talk about, which is much more advanced. They're scrolling through screens, swiping left and right. The attention span is so short. Look at the Instagram stories, right? Those are like 5 seconds and they're on to the next and on to the next. You look at all these pieces, and then you look at some of the dental practices, like websites that are fairly static. Some of the more advanced ones actually have moving video, but then it's, well, how much is that optimized? And when you get on the mobile, I mean, we could really go down that path for a very long time. How that correlates, though, to the people side. And when you look at the people side, we have some individuals and the people in dental who may have been in dental and have been experienced in dental and have all this institutional knowledge of 20, 30 years, who are extremely valuable, who may not be, let's just call them, they're more analog in the ways that they do business in dentistry, who are valuable if we find ways to value them. And then there are those who are much more digitally savvy, who are much more staccato in things they do, and bing, 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 and they're bouncing off things like you are, like I am, right? And then how do we transition with that? And the work that you do in being a proponent for women's empowerment, right? And so, not only with women in DSO, but also the work that you do, with forgive me, is it the dental entrepreneur women? I think I've got that right. So with those two groups, like, yeah, what thank you. I got it right. Woo. So tell me, with those two groups, like, what unique challenges and opportunities do you see for women in leadership roles in the dental industry, and trying to bridge what I see as that gap? Since, I mean, let's just talk about it, right? So when it comes to staff, right? it is a women dominant group. But when it comes to leadership in groups, especially in the DSO space, it is not so much women dominated. And so talk to me a little bit about that. I know it's a heavy question. I just laid it right there at your feet. But as, as
No, it's
somebody who
okay.
is
Let's
a
get
proponent,
heavy.
yeah, let's get heavy, because as a proponent of women's empowerment, and for myself as an ally, I would love to learn more and understand more, right? Because I'm a white male, right? And as, one of those who has traditionally been in the class that has been in leadership positions and trying to be more of a true ally, or, and I know there's more words than ally, and I'm even missing out on those. So I have to, implied bias there, wanting to learn more and become a better person that can be of assistance. And I want to learn more from you. So please share, open up, teach me, and teach some of my listening audience of how we can be better, as we support, as we encourage, as we learn and grow in this process.
Right. So whenever I work with a group, I work with dental practices and I tend to work with industry partners outside of my mentoring. But I find that there's two things that are going on that I really advocate for. Number one, when it comes to your branding, who you are, whether you're a dental practice, an industry partner, or just a single entity. Here I am, solopreneur. Hello, right? We have to make sure that people know who we are, that they buy into us as opposed to what we're offering first. And I find that even in my line of work, the things that I love doing, a lot of people say, okay, I need a marketing professional. Do you know how many marketing professionals that there are, whether they're in the DSO space or they're in an independent practice?
Hundreds, if not
There's
thousands.
so
Yeah.
many, exactly. There's so many of us, right? And same goes for dental practices. Everybody likes to think they're different, but like, what makes you different? What makes you unique? A lot of that is tends to be missing from their website. A lot of that tends to be missing from their personal brands on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, or whatever social media mechanism that you use in order to get your message out there. And so whenever it is that I come and I'm like, okay, I like you, but I have no idea who you are. I can't make you a point of reference because you don't really have an identity here. So, whenever it comes to making yourself stand out, the authenticity matters, first of all. But also, I think that that's the best marketing component that you can have to your brand, whether you are a person or a company. Part two is I when it comes to women's empowerment, this is where I get a little jazzy. A lot of when if I'm searching for an opportunity from a patient standpoint, there is nothing more powerful. I talked about this in my women's empowerment course. Viola Davis, she put up in a video on her Instagram. I wish I had a link or some kind of reference to when she put it up. Within the last 6 months, so sometime between June 2023 up until present day in 2024, she talked about the importance of there's nothing more powerful than seeing the physical manifestation of what is possible, of what you're looking for, of what you look to be. When people are shopping around for their dentist and people are shopping around and looking for opportunities to flourish in an organization, if they don't see themselves, and women are here, if they don't see themselves, if they don't see the actual physical manifestation of themselves reflected in the organization or within the patient population that you are branding and talking to, you're really missing a big mark. When it comes to women's empowerment in particular, women are typically not amplified in ways for many reasons, but while I do see a shift, I think there's plenty more to go. And when it comes to leadership, when it comes to really making sure that many perspectives are coming to the place, when you put women in leadership, you outpace the competition, statistically speaking. Especially, you brought up women in DSO. They made a beautiful post that talks about, statistically speaking, whenever you have a woman in leadership, you tend to outpace the competition by a significant percentage. And why is that, right? Because the voice of the audience, the voice of the team, the voice of the patient, the voice of whoever it is that you're looking to speak to is missing. And when you add more voices into the diversity, into the melting pot, and in leadership in particular, you really get to a point where not only are you thinking from the perspective that is desperately needed, but is desperately desired by all the people that you're looking to do business with. So when it comes to women, especially in particular, especially when it comes to, okay, I want to get a promotion, I want to get a job, I want to get a promotion into a new position. The one thing that I find that really holds women back from taking care of opportunities is, one, they don't see the physical manifestation of what they aspire to be, that potent, powerful thing. They have to be the pillar instead of look to the pillar. A lot of women, when they're just like thinking about, okay, what can I do? How can I do it? They don't see themselves reflected. So they're not going for the roles that they are more than qualified to do. And I'm looking to change that. Number two is that self-belief. What we tell ourselves matter. Mindset mastery matters. And so when it comes to what we tell ourselves, that inner dialogue, if you don't believe in yourself and you don't speak from a place of conviction, it's very hard, just energetically speaking, let alone practically speaking, for people to buy into you. So when you have women who don't see themselves reflected, and they don't see themselves reflected in many facets of dentistry, whether they're at the patient level or at the leadership level, and they don't come from a place of conviction, when they're talking to the decision makers and demonstrating their value, they fall short because the things that we tell ourselves drives our actions and our decision making. And I speak to that so much, whether it is in a mentoring capacity, some of the workshops that I've done. It's just something that I find is not touched on quite a bit, but there are other organizations out there that are rising up, such as Dental Entrepreneurial Women, such as Women in DSO, such as myself, who's kind of paving my own way and making sure that I'm on podcasts and panels and on stages that really speak to some of the industry narratives that are a bit antiquated and can use a little remix, to be frank.
And I love that you talk about mindset, because mindset is really where it's all about, right? It's all about mindset, and it's where it's at, because I can tell you the stories that I've told myself in my past, in my history, whether it was working for, a manufacturer, the largest implant manufacturer in the world, Straumann Group, and helping to launch the Neodent brand into the market. I can tell you that the external facts really didn't change. It was the story that I told myself that had so much to do with how I showed up in that role and responsibility at different levels in the organization, was reflected in whether or not I was able to be of service to my clients, to my colleagues, to the leadership, and whether or not I was most effective in what I did. And that's just not in my professional life, right? It's the same in my consulting business now, but it's just not in my professional life. It's also in my personal life. It's how I show up for my son and his wife and my family and my husband and those that I mentor, right? Those in recovery, the 10 people that I sponsor right now. It's how I show up for myself, and whether or not I value myself enough to do not just self-care, but self-love. And that is so important as well. It's a part of being a founding member of Sober Life Rocks. It's all about, as well, about, do I love and care about myself enough to be a part of a group to say out loud, yes, I believe in this. This is a part of what I want to do. This is a part of who I am. And I want to support others. And it doesn't mean that you can't drink. It's that, you have a choice of whether you want to or not in a community, in the dental community. And we can have events, evening events, that don't have to revolve around alcohol all the time. If you choose to, that's great. But there's also a big community of us who choose not to. And it's the networking at these events that are so critically important, because it is about supporting others. And so I just love that you brought up mindset, because it triggers so much for me and it pulls so many levers. So thank you so much for bringing that forward. I just love the work that you're doing, and I love that you shared that for sure. Well, Deneen, this is the point of the show. Every one of my guests play. It's called What the Sleuth is Going On? It's 3 rapid fire questions. Are you ready to play?
I'm so ready to play. Especially you got me jazzed up about mindset. Come on, let's go.
First thing that comes to mind. Here we go. Question number 1. What's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered?
Oh my gosh. Lord,
You're giggling.
You know what?
Tell
Maybe
the truth. First thing that comes to mind.
You know what? I really can't even get there, because I rebuke bad breath in the name of Jesus. I don't want it around me. I don't want it. I don't want it. Like, dear me, I cannot tell you the last time that I actually kept that even in my mind. My whole being is like, absolutely not.
I'm thinking of the movie The Exorcist. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you for bad press.
Listen. Especially we are emerging from the COVID days. The mask days were one of the best days of my life. Are you kidding me? And I had a kid too. Now, listen. Deneen Dismore is unavailable. I imagine when I lived and worked in New York, when I did the Brooklyn Manhattan shuffle for years, there had to have been a subway critter that just breathed all over. There has to have been. It has to have happened. But oh my goodness, that is hysterical. I don't even know if I answered your question. We'll credit the subway critter in Manhattan on the C or the G. All right, sure.
You did. Okay. All right.
But pre-mask days.
Number 2. Pre-mask days. Question number 2. If you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
Pregnancy, it's one of the best blessings of my life, but it is also for the birds. You can't get anything done. You can't do any whitening treatments. X-rays are out, which is fine, but I'm just like, I feel like I'm so behind the ball, especially now I'm a nursing mother. I want the works done. I want to go in, X-ray me up, give me the whitening, give me all the things. And no, I'm like kind of in like basic girl mode, which is great because I have good oral hygiene standards is what my hygienist told me. But I'm just like, but there's just so much more to go. I mean, come on. So I would say I want to go back to the days where I can just pop in for whitening and pop in for spa treatments. Give me the retinol treatment while I'm sitting in the chair at the dental spa. Can't get it.
See, you can be basic, but it's okay to want a little extra for yourself. I just talked about self-love and self-care. It's okay. You can want that too.
Say it again, Greg.
It's okay. It's all right. You just might not be there right now, but it's okay. Hey, a girl can want. I'm just saying. All right, question number 3. If you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product, which one would you choose and why?
It won't be Direct Smile.
Bam, there it is.
It won't be that. Won't be them. Oh my goodness.
There it is.
That's a dental product. Oh my god, it's so easy to hate on them. It's so easy to pick on the kid who's no longer in the room, but you shouldn't have been in the room in the first place. But that's another conversation.
Another conversation for another day.
A dental product, I think the electric toothbrush, if I could have gone back and invented that, and just, like, I don't know who's sitting in, like, the dental heavens that has patented, like,
life-changing, isn't it?
Electricity for toothbrush. Right? Yeah. I would do that.
Love it. I love it. And I have not gotten any, I think we're on episode, like, somewhere in the upper 40s. Like, we've had, like, 45 or more people answer that question, and nobody said the electric toothbrush yet. So I like it. So that's an original answer. Well done, Deneen. All right. Well, I want to respect all of my listeners and your time as well. Thank you so much for being on the show today. So is there anything we haven't covered, anything that I haven't asked you that you want to share with my listening audience before we close the show?
I really, really want to give my heart and soul, if I may, from a place of conviction and passion. I was on a mentoring call the other day, and maybe I'll turn this into a social media post, but we'll keep it exclusive for the podcast for now. But I was on the call with one of the young women that I mentor, and I really want to empower everybody to share their light far more often. We were having this deep exchange, and for confidentiality reasons, I can't share who it was or specifics of what we talked about. But essentially, as I showed up as myself in my authenticity, Deneen is she's a lot of things. She's confident, she's sassy, she's giggly, she's just somebody who doesn't take life too seriously, because I know the complexities of life and I've lived through quite so much, where now when life's ups and downs happen, outside of maybe a mini meltdown about tech that I had this morning when it came to recording this podcast, I can pretty much show up and overcome and persevere and like just approach life that's a bit different for somebody of my age and of my background. And so I was on the phone just being myself, which I emphasize so much. And she says, you know, thank you so much just for being here because you show up and I don't know if it's confidence, but you just own your stuff and it makes me feel like I can own it too. And just seeing you just there and speaking to me, I'm not saying anything proprietary to this girl, right? Especially in the mentoring space, we are actively growing together. I am there as a light, but I am not her light. It's her job, and I trust her to carry her own light and move forward with her own light that I'm reminding her that she has in the first place, right? Um, I just want to really encourage anybody who's listening to share your light and share it more often and to be big about it. I have wasted so much time and so much energy trying to put together this pristine version of myself that I don't even really vibe with. If I show up on a call in a mom bun, I bet that the caliber of person that I am in my mom bun, regardless of whether I've got my lashes on or not, which today I do, regardless of all that, I am who I am, and somebody needs me. Somebody's praying for me, and I imagine that the same applies to everybody who's listening as well. Somebody needs you. Somebody's praying for you. Somebody really wants you to be in their space, but they can't find you because you're not sharing your life more often and in a way that's authentic and big. If there's anything I want to leave you with, it's that.
It so much truth to that, and I so appreciate you sharing that, because for people to show up as their authentic self and be willing to be a little vulnerable, I just encourage that and lift that up, and thank you for reminding all of my listeners and me of that. Because one thing that I know in this space, in the dental industry, of all the industries that I know, there are people out here willing to give more, just a little bit more, right? More in 24. Give a little bit more of yourself, of mentoring, whether it's in a formal capacity or just making yourself available to other individuals. If you hear this and you like what you're hearing, reach out. If you hear this and you can make yourself available to somebody else who is reaching out, don't give a hand out, give a hand up to somebody else, because it's so critically important. We can create more good in the world. Thank you so much, Deneen, for giving of your heart, your time, and your authentic true self to being a guest here on the Two Sleuth podcast. How would somebody get a hold of you, Deneen, if they want to learn more about you or to learn more about your mom bun, lashes and all today? Thank you so much. How could they get a hold of you, Deneen? Please tell everyone.
Sure, I am the only Deneen Dismore in the world. I was meant to be a marketing professional from the very beginning. So they can find me on my website, DeneenDismore.com, all the socials. I'm the only Deneen Dismore who exists.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure we get that in the show notes too. Deneen, it is always a pleasure spending time with you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.